Values Compass, What 101 Countries Teach Us About Purpose, Life, and Leadership. What did you discover while researching your book, and how could this be relevant to women? Please.
Well, firstly, Carrie, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here, and thank you for remembering me for holding me in your mind since I think it's been 2 years or a year and a half since we met in person. So I very much appreciate that. And it's good to join you across from London to Switzerland to connect.
Thank you.
So your question was, how do?
What did you discover while researching your book, and how could this be relevant to women?
All right. So the Values Compass takes you around the world, but the aim is not just to give you a very colourful journey, although it is that, but rather to see how different values have evolved in different countries. So a value is something that it could be you as an individual, what you think is important, or what an entire kind of country is valuing or considers important. And it often is a combination of its history, geography, psyche, how those people have kind of the experiences that they have been through for them to think that, let's say, entrepreneurship or the American ability to pivot and change course again and again and again until they get it right, or the value of respect from Japan and how they kind of permeated that in every aspect of their society. And so what it brings for you as the reader is to think about, what is it that's important to you? And it helps you think about the experiences that you've had in your life, what has shaped you. And then rather than that coming from your subconscious and you just reacting according to what's happened in your past, it helps you almost take a fresh perspective and think, okay, that is all that is driving me. But what do I wish, or what am I motivated by? Or what are my aspirations? Or what is important to me? And for that to become your active choice and your priority list. And so the Values Compass helps you boil down to kind of your foundation or your core values and helps you prioritize those.
Thank you. So what can society as a whole, men, women, and children, do to make the changes required?
Well, I feel that actually during the pandemic, many changes have taken place or are taking place as society is shifting. So, for example, if we take the what's happening right now is the fact that India is really suffering from COVID, and there's a lack of oxygen concentrators. And I think in the past, there were always problems happening in the world, but it wasn't that we necessarily thought of it as our problem, or that we worked with the immediacy with which we did right now. And it didn't matter whether you were Indian or not. I've seen 6-year-old children raise money for oxygen concentrators. I've seen BA and Virgin fly these oxygen concentrators over for free. I feel like there's a greater empathy and compassion and immediacy. We know that something that might have happened in a market in China has affected and can affect each and every one of us, and that we could, what our neighbor is experiencing, whether they're our neighbor or whether they're in a completely other side of the world, we could potentially go through an experience too. So there's a sense of we are all one and we are united. And I think that in itself will create huge ripple effects and changes in the world. And then in terms of your question, in terms of how men, women, children, the change that they can bring to their lives, well, if we actively think about it kind of builds a level of understanding when we come from a place of values. If we actively think about, what does the person that I'm interacting with, what's important to them, as well as what's important to me, but how are they being driven? It brings this greater sense of peace, harmony, unity, understanding that isn't present when we're just coming from our already always reactions.
Thank you. So what, in your opinion, what are the most important issues facing women today and the most needing of change?
My goodness, there are so many issues facing women. I wish that we were that, you know, in the last kind of 150 years that we've been actively working on equality, that we had made more progress than we have. But actually, even more hurtful is the fact that over this pandemic, it is said that we have lost maybe 37 years, equivalent of 37 years of progress. There are so many things, there's so many challenges. We're still struggling to really be in boardrooms in an equal level. We're still not being paid the same as men for the same job. I actually can never get my head around why, who, and how that is justifiable, or why that is still the case. And I think if we don't deal with some of these fundamental, very clear inequalities, then, you know, it's like trying to build on an unstable foundation. It's very, very difficult. I think the fact that maternity leave or childcare cover is still so piecemeal and so often just a burden that women are expected to pick up. And then there becomes an inequality in how the couple earn, and then there becomes an inequality within the household and how that's structured and who has which duty. So there's so many things that we're yet to address successfully. Some nations have definitely addressed it better than others. I think the Scandinavian countries have done a better job and are creating a model that we could utilize. And much more importantly, I think this pandemic is creating a reset opportunity. So whereas perhaps we were disadvantaged if we ever asked for part-time work or working from home or working flexible hours, I think there's a greater appetite and possibility of that clearly there is. So we have an opportunity right now to leapfrog a lot of the challenges that we were facing. And I think this is what we have to seize.
Thank you. So what messages and actions should we take now to make the future better for future generations of females?
What messages and actions should we take?
Yeah.
Did you say what messages? I think it's a matter of resilience, not giving up, and working as a team. So, for example, with the female quotient, we've created a dinner series that is literally roaming around the world. It's called the FQ pack, the female quotient pack. So such that we're a pack or a body of women that supports other women. And to leave no woman behind, to make sure that every woman has a seat at the table. And if they don't have a seat, well, then you offer your lap. You make sure that no one's excluded. And you make sure that you kind of send that elevator back down and make sure that the next person can come up and rise up with you. So it's that idea, which I think the female quotient is so good at, kind of spreading and connecting and creating a global platform that we can all be part of, we can all interact. So it doesn't matter where you land tomorrow, there'll be a person ready to pick you up from the airport and to look after you. So it's like women being there for other women. There's a special place in heaven for such women, and we're creating exactly that.
You write about how values that define the ambitions we set, the choices we make, and the relationships we choose. What are the values that matter most, last longest, and have the greatest power to change?
Well, to be honest, the book definitely looks at each value as an equal value. So I am not here to say that compassion is more important than equality, or humility is important than justice, or respect is more important than love. That's not a judgment call that I would make. That's a judgment call that you would make depending on what's important to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rai. MORK.org is a Swiss charitable association for women's interests, including victims of violence, equal opportunity in work and law, reproductive rights, access the environment. To make your Swiss tax-deductible donation or donate your time or professional advice, please contact us via MORK.org@yahoo.com. Thank you for viewing, and thank you very much, Dr. Rai.
You're very welcome.